Hey everybody, it's Nico with another thought load for you. And today I want to talk about two different concepts that I learned in life coaching classes and that I've read also just reading books and things like that. Those concepts are pain versus pleasure and expectation versus appreciation. Now I know that we've talked about these at some point during our thought load episodes or our actual podcast episodes, but I wanted to go a little bit more in depth today, maybe give you guys some examples and share why it's so important to at least understand these concepts. Actually, understanding the concepts is only part of it. Actually making the change or recognizing what's going on and doing something about it is a totally different story. I'm not going to give too many examples of that today, but it's just so you can become aware. We can understand what's happening when we see these things, and maybe that'll help us understand other people, but also it may help us understand ourselves. So the first is pain versus pleasure. And the example that I usually like to use is whenever we hear of someone who maybe drinks on a regular basis, or maybe they go out and gamble on a regular basis. Maybe they're hanging out with friends that you and other family members think aren't helpful to them. Or maybe they're engaging in an activity that is damaging to their health outside of alcohol. Whenever those things happen, most of the time, there's an element of pain and pleasure involved. What the person is usually doing, it's obviously different for every person, but what the person is usually doing if they're going out and engaging in those activities, they are avoiding the pain of doing whatever else is in their life that they know they have to do, or maybe they want to do it. But they're avoiding that pain because they know it's hard. They know it's hard to start a workout routine and lose weight. They know it's hard to reach out to someone they haven't talked to in a while and maybe they had a fight. They know it's hard to express their feelings to their loved ones or their wife or spouse or whoever it may be. And instead of going through that temporary pain to alleviate those situations, they would rather experience that pleasure now by doing those other activities that are actually harmful to their bodies long term, or to their mental state long term. Now, the crazy part is we do that with everything. Everything from the foods that we eat to the people that we hang out with to anything. Whenever you're making a decision for your life this weekend, stop and think if you are avoiding pain or if you're just focusing on pleasure, or if it's a combination of both. And I think you'll find that it rears its head, pain and pleasure rears its head more often than we really would think. And again, I wanted to show you this and introduce this concept once again so we understand it. Because I would hope that someone listening to this would hear, you know what? Man, he's talking about, drinking. I do that on a regular basis. I would imagine that if I didn't go to the bar, I could spend more time with X person, or I could call this person, or I could do this thing, and that's going to make my life a lot better. That doesn't mean that you have to stop drinking if it's something that you enjoy. I'm not trying to revamp someone's life in 24 hours. But the key part here is if you're able to experience a little bit of pain, to call that friend, to have that conversation, to do the project, whatever it may be, if you're willing to experience that pain for a moment in time, you're not going to regret that later. Most likely, right? Because all of the things in life that are worth doing are worth paying the price to do them. And some of those things are very difficult. And so I'd urge you to try and acknowledge any instances where you see pain and pleasure at play in your life or in the lives of others, just to acknowledge it. And hopefully, over time, as you learn to acknowledge it more and more, you'll be able to recognize why you and others are making certain decisions. And maybe at that time, if you want, you can make the change that you're looking for. Now, the second concept is expectation versus appreciation. And I love talking about this because it is something that I know I struggled with and continue to struggle with. And I think it's something that is universal to us as human beings. A great example in this topic is talking about restaurants. Whenever we go into a restaurant and we order food, what do we expect? We expect to get what we ordered, right? Now, what happens if we don't get what we ordered? Well, I know a lot of people would freak out. They would ask to speak to their manager. They would talk down to the waiter. They would do all of those things simply because their expectations were not met. And listen, if you want to be that person, go for it. But everybody else in the restaurant looking at you complaining about food that it wasn't cooked properly is laughing at you on the inside. Because here's why. Even though we have that high expectation to get what we ordered in that situation, we have no idea what happened in the kitchen. We have no idea if the guy who cooked that just lost his mother. We have no idea if the guy who cooked that was just reamed out by his boss for something that somebody else did. We have no clue. We have no idea if your server accidentally grabbed the wrong plate. There could be a million different things that happen that lead to you getting the wrong food that you ordered. And a lot of them have nothing to do with you or your server or the person that cooked your food. And so instead of freaking out about the food and becoming angry and arguing and what have you, what do you think would happen if you said, you know what, that's no problem. I bet you this is probably delicious because this place has got really good food anyways. I'll have this if that's okay with you guys, but if not, could I get a little discount on the food that I ordered? And I'm more than happy to wait. I'm sure they'd be happy to throw you that discount. I'm sure they'd be happy to do that. In fact, I bet you the manager would come over and make sure it was okay. And funny enough, that is exactly what happened to me a little while ago. My mom and I and my stepdad went to a steakhouse. And I ordered a very particular type of cook for my steak. It's called Pittsburgh Blue. And I know that this is basically supposed to be straight off the cow. And when I got it, it was medium or medium rare. And Pittsburgh Blue is way, way less cooked than medium rare. And so the only thing that I did was I took a look, I took a bite, made sure I was not just imagining what I was seeing. And then the only thing I did was I let the manager know. Because it is a steakhouse and because they need to know how to cook that stuff, I only wanted to let them know. And I devoured all of that steak. Because there's no reason to have them throw that out too. Especially in a restaurant example with expectation and appreciation. Anytime you return food that you've already touched, 9 times out of 10, they can't do anything with it. So they have to throw it away. That's a waste. And at least for me, I'm trying to eliminate any waste that I have or that I create in life. Now, a restaurant example is super simple when it comes to expectation versus appreciation. But going a little deeper, I'd urge you to think about what type of expectations we have when it comes to talking with friends or family members, when it comes to talking with people at work, especially people that we don't necessarily vibe with. What type of expectations do you have for those people? And how could your conversations change if you just appreciated everything as much as you can? And listen, I understand that there are certain levels of idiocy that are difficult to handle. But if we genuinely appreciate what everyone is trying to do at work, amongst friends, amongst family, I think all of our conversations and interactions would become a lot better. So what are your expectations? Are you appreciating everything more? Take a look and see what you find. And the best line that I always remember from Tony Robbins about expectation and appreciation is that you should trade expectation for appreciation. You shouldn't have any expectations. Because having expectations, regardless of what they are, is the quickest way to lead to disappointment, to lead to anger, and other negative emotions that we don't necessarily need. And what usually happens whenever high levels of emotion and anger get into the mix, don't we usually do things that we end up regretting? And listen, you've heard me say this before. I'm trying to reduce the amount of things I regret in life as much as humanly possible. So if the only thing or one of the small things that I have to do is change my expectation for appreciation, I'm going to do that as much as I can. Because in that way, I'll have less and less regret as life goes on. And hopefully by doing all this stuff, I'll have more quality interactions with the people in my life. And I hope you will too. Guys, thanks for joining me today on this ThoughtLoad. Hopefully you're having a wonderful week. Hopefully you enjoy the weekend and stay tuned for another ThoughtLoad next week. As always, begin the duel, win the day.